What if I told you that the real Cleopatra was never the seductive woman that popular history has portrayed? That behind the myths and legends, there was a strategic leader, intelligent and determined to change the fate of an empire. Cleopatra lived in a time of conflict and transformation, where power was disputed with cunning and courage. But who was this woman beyond the romances and intrigues? How did she manage to defy the conventions of her time and leave a mark that would span millennia? These questions take us on a journey to rediscover the Queen of Egypt, not as a distant figure, but as someone whose story still resonates and inspires. In this script, we will reveal how Cleopatra transcended myths to become a symbol of power, intelligence, and female resilience. Get ready to look beyond appearances and understand the complexity of a woman who challenged her world and changed history forever. Cleopatra really existed, and her life was much more complex than romantic stories and movies usually show. She was not only a beautiful and charismatic queen, but also a political strategist who mastered several languages and deeply understood the alliances that shaped the power of her time. For example, did you know that Cleopatra was the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that reigned over Egypt for almost 300 years? This meant she was at the center of a cultural crossroads, trying to balance Egyptian traditions with the growing influence of Rome. But why do so many stories about her focus only on her romance with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony? What exactly has been hidden or distorted to create such a limited image? Cleopatra used her intelligence and charisma to keep Egypt independent in a world dominated by expanding empires, and her struggle goes far beyond her famous love affair. What if I told you that some of her decisions changed the course of world history forever? If you're curious to find out where this story will take us, stick with me until the end, because what follows will challenge everything you thought you knew about the Queen of Egypt. To understand the real Cleopatra, we need to delve into three pillars that defined her reign and her story: her political intelligence, her leadership skills, and the turbulent context in which she lived. Imagine Egypt in the 1st century BC, an ancient kingdom with its imposing pyramids, vibrant markets, and sacred temples, but also a place where power was a volatile currency, disputed among nobles, generals, and foreign powers. Cleopatra not only inherited this complexity, she mastered it with a strategic vision rare for her time. By speaking several languages and understanding the cultures around her, she negotiated alliances that could either save or condemn her people. But her intelligence was not her only secret. Cleopatra was a leader who knew how to reinvent herself in the face of adversity, using her charisma and knowledge to win powerful allies. However, this same ability generated controversies that have spanned the centuries. Some historians see her as a manipulator, others as a visionary ruler who challenged the patriarchal order of antiquity. This duality raises an essential question: to what extent is the image we have of her the result of history written by the victors, especially Rome? After all, it was the Roman Empire that, upon defeating her, had an interest in shaping her reputation to justify its expansion. And if that weren't enough, the historical context in which Cleopatra lived was marked by constant tension between tradition and change. Egypt was the last great independent kingdom before being absorbed by imperial Rome. The queen had to balance respect for Egyptian traditions and external pressures while trying to secure the future of her people. This internal struggle between preserving a millennial legacy and facing a changing world is perhaps the greatest proof of her resilience. These elements make up the essence of Cleopatra, a woman who was not limited to being a historical figure, but who became a complex and fascinating symbol. And what lies behind these layers may surprise you even more. Until now, we have thought of Cleopatra as a queen who fought to maintain her kingdom amid powerful empires. But what if I told you that part of the history we know has been carefully manipulated to hide something much bigger? Ancient documents and accounts suggest that Cleopatra was not just a leader seeking power. She may have been a key agent of a cultural and political revolution that threatened to change the balance of the ancient world. This perspective changes everything. If her image has been distorted to diminish her impact and erase her true legacy, what else are we failing to see? Who would have an interest in silencing this story? This isn't just about a queen of Egypt. It's about how entire narratives can be erased or reinvented to serve specific interests, and what that means for how we understand the past and perhaps the present. If this hidden truth begins to emerge, how might it transform our view of power, gender, and history? The urgency of this question is real, and what follows may challenge everything you thought you knew about Cleopatra. If Cleopatra was indeed the target of a campaign to erase her true legacy, it completely changes how we view not only her, but the entire history of Egypt and the great powers of the ancient world. Imagine that by reducing her image to a mere seductress, Roman chroniclers hid her political intelligence and her crucial role in the resistance against Roman expansionism. This manipulation affected generations, shaping a narrative that benefited the victors while silencing the voices of those who challenged the ruling power. For the Egyptian people of the time, this meant losing a leader who symbolized hope and autonomy in a time of uncertainty. Today, this distortion arouses a sense of injustice and curiosity. How many other important figures have been erased or distorted by political interests? What if this is not an exception? Recent documents, fragments of accounts, and even popular legends indicate that official history may hide patterns of manipulation that repeat themselves over time. How can we trust what we have learned when so many layers have been built to hide the truth? This reflection invites us to look beyond the obvious, to question official versions, and to seek new perspectives. After all, how many other powerful stories still remain in the shadows, waiting to be revealed? If this idea intrigues you, get ready, because what follows will unveil even more secrets about this queen who went far beyond what we have been told. And this is where everything changed. Cleopatra was not just a passionate queen or a political strategist. She was the last living flame of an empire fighting against the inevitable shadow of Rome. Imagine her not as an isolated figure, but as someone who carried the fate of an entire people on her shoulders, navigating betrayals, fragile alliances, and power struggles that defined the future of the world. Her intelligence was not only tactical, but visionary. She spoke several languages, understood the culture of her enemies and allies, and used this knowledge to keep Egypt as independent as possible. This revelation confronts us with the brutality of a system that chose to erase her history in order to celebrate only the victors. For the people of that time, Cleopatra was more than a ruler. She was a symbol of resistance, courage, and hope. And for us today, she defies all simplifications, demanding that we rethink what power and legacy mean. This intense truth brings forth a mixture of admiration and sadness. Admiration for her unparalleled strength, sadness for the silence imposed by official history. What if this story had been written by her? What if her perspective had been heard? The questions remain, leaving us in a heavy silence, ready to dive even deeper into this journey that is, above all, a reunion with the truth. After that revelation, nothing was ever the same again. Cleopatra ceased to be just a distant figure in history and became a living symbol of resistance and complexity, someone whose life and decisions echoed far beyond her time. For Egypt, her struggle represented the last attempt to preserve an identity in the face of overwhelming forces. For Rome, it was the beginning of a new order, but also proof that power is never absolute, always marked by conflict and contradiction. And for us, looking back, this story invites us to reflect on how the past is constructed, by whom and why. What we learn from Cleopatra goes beyond dates and events. It is a lesson about the importance of questioning official narratives, recognizing silenced voices, and valuing the strength of women who challenged the system. This understanding brings a silent invitation that we continue to seek, discover, and rescue hidden stories, because they say a lot about who we are today. Yet despite all we have revealed, there is one last piece of this puzzle that remains hidden, a final secret that could forever transform our view of this fascinating queen. And it is precisely this mystery that we now turn to. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered much more than the simplified image that time and political interests have bequeathed us about Cleopatra. We have seen how she was a shrewd leader, Fluent in languages, understanding cultures, and masterfully navigating the complex alliances between Egypt and Rome, we have discovered that her story goes beyond famous novels, revealing a woman determined to preserve the independence of her people in the midst of a changing world. We also understand how the manipulation of official narratives erased her true essence, leaving gaps that still challenge us today to fill with curiosity and courage. This trajectory shows us that Cleopatra was not just a queen, but a symbol of power, resistance, and intelligence, a figure whose voice, silenced for centuries, is beginning to echo again. More than just telling a story from the past, this invites us to reflect on the importance of questioning what is presented to us, of seeking the multiple layers of truth, and of recognizing the forces that shape collective memory. Now, as we prepare for the final stage of this narrative, I invite you to keep that flame burning. Continue exploring, questioning, and sharing this story that deserves to be known in all its depth. After all, what we learn from Cleopatra can inspire not only an understanding of the past, but also how we face our own challenges today. In the end, Cleopatra teaches us that true history goes far beyond appearances and stereotypes. It is made up of courage, intelligence, and resilience in the face of adversity. If this journey through the life of this queen has piqued your curiosity and made you see the past with new eyes, leave your like and share what impressed you most in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow other stories that challenge what we know and invite us to think differently. Also, be sure to check out our next video, where we will explore fascinating secrets that still remain hidden in the annals of history. Until next time, and remember, each story revealed is an open door to better understanding who we are and where we come from. After all, what else is waiting to be discovered?